Before we dive into this video, I do want to give a disclaimer that there will be mentioning of certain types of drugs, certain types of scenes that might be seen at a rave, or things that happen during raving. I just want to give this disclaimer. If you might be subject to potential triggers when you hear certain words or when you hear certain types of drug names, then this video might not be for you. Hey guys, welcome back to the YouTube channel, and today we're going to be talking about raves or raving or rave culture. If you don't know what raving is, I'll put up some images right here just so you can kind of see how this looks. And really what raving is, so you got some music genres that are very big with raving. EDM might be the biggest one, but you'll find things like EDM, techno, house. These are just some of the big music genres that has to do with raving. More specifically like EDM, which is it's got lots of bass. With EDM, which stands for electronic dance music, and then you got techno, house. You can, obviously dance to this kind of music. People will use it for going to the gym. I actually used to use EDM and techno music for gym workouts before. I would actually use those. When you look into these types of music, it's a whole culture. Anything can be a culture, right? But specifically in this video with raves, it's a specific culture where you go to these raves. They're basically like concerts, but it's not like your typical normal concert that you go to go see at your local, could be like a stadium. Raving also has to do, you might hear about people using drugs, I'm sure there's marijuana in there. Drinking is allowed in there too. And then you got psychedelics, which is a whole nother thing. You got drugs like Molly, acid, and all types of stuff, right? And ecstasy is very well known as a party drug. I can actually speak about having done drugs at a rave, right? You don't have your typical concert. You have a lot of deep bass music, even at a concert too, but you can really feel the music at these raves. I've got to maybe like a handful. I don't know if it was like maybe at least three raves, maybe four, but no more than like a handful that I actually went to and attended and participated. And during these raves, you can really feel the music like in your body. You can really feel the bass and all those deep sounds of the instruments and the electronic and techno just going into your body. You can feel it, right? And so energy is a big thing too. It can also get very spiritual as well. That kind of goes more into, it can go more into using psychedelics and using drugs, where the spiritual part becomes even more active. I don't want to talk about that too much. I mostly just want to concentrate this video on just raving, what it is, its health effects, its potential dangers, and how it's become a very normal thing to do within our culture. And especially you have big names like EDC, which is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, event for EDM music and raving like on the earth. And it's located, they do it I think in the springtime in Las Vegas. There's a specific area that they use, and they'll be like, you have your typical concert that you go to, you have your stage, but at these raves, even at your local rave that you might have, if it's like an organized event, you'll have more than one stage. You'll have like the ones that were here in Salt Lake City. There was at least two, but usually three for the big events that there were. And they always broadcast and advertise the big DJ names. You have like the big DJ names, it could be like one or two or three of them. I don't know how many. And then you have like smaller DJs. And at EDC, as well as all these really big events, you have multiple stages. And so it's like you have one concert combined with a bunch of other concerts. You got basically the same theme and genre of music, but different kinds of music and songs and soundtracks being played. And you have a bunch of people everywhere. The energy is insane. I can't speak for EDC. I know how crazy it is. I can just imagine how crazy it is because I've been to a rave with like 3 stages. And so it was typically like around Halloween time or maybe like around the fall. There was one here, I forgot the name of it. It was in the summertime in August. And this was a few years back where I used to attend. And my wife, who was also my girlfriend at the time, we went together with a group of friends. And then there was some that I went to before I had a girlfriend. And yeah, it gets so crazy. Like if you just go look up raves or look up EDC, just type it up on YouTube or the internet and you'll see what I'm talking about. They get very crazy. You can basically dress there's people that will dress almost half naked. You might see certain body parts, that are usually covered up for the most part, like in public. And there's definitely going to be drugs. People try to sell drugs here too. Alcohol is already part of the event. And so, but with the drugs that are involved, right, it could be ecstasy, molly, weed, any other thing that you can think of. It's not legal to bring in there. And I'm sure the event planners, they know that people will bring their own drugs and stuff, but I don't think they really care for the most part. What they really want is for people to come and attend, because you got to pay for your ticket, and your ticket is not cheap. There's usually like you can pay for like your 1 day, 2 day, however many days the event lasts. But yeah, most people will usually sneak in drugs. I remember that when I went with my friend groups, we would just sneak them in. Yeah, it got really crazy. And so that was just a little bit of my story when it comes to raves and raving. I'll finish it up towards the end of the video. Moving on to where raving started is when you go on the internet, you'll find that raves actually started underground between like the 1980s and 1990s. You might even see some footage on your social media or just on the internet of like certain videos, and you see people that are just kind of like, maybe they're moving around a lot, maybe they're not, maybe they're just kind of like going to the tune of something. But usually, at least from my point of view, in my opinion, is that they're on drugs. They're on something. That also ties into back when I was raving and I went to some raves. I would notice that I would start doing the same thing. You just start doing like a certain motion and you're just in repetition. It's almost like you're like in some kind of cycle and you just keep doing the same movement over and over again, and you're just going to the beat. Whatever the beat is, you're going along with it, you're in tune with it. You see other people that are around you that are in tune with it too. You have the lights flashing, maybe you're drinking, or if you were on drugs, it's the whole thing. It's the whole atmosphere. It's just everything. And then everyone's energy is all into this because everyone is coming together for this one thing. But you can find these kinds of videos, you can just go look them up. Before the year 2000 is when raving was already a thing, techno has already been a thing. Nowadays, in the current culture, in the current year, we're in 2024, EDM music, electronic dance music has really evolved. It's gotten more intense, more beats, more songs have come out, more people are knowing about it, and especially younger generations too. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you have to be at least 18 to go to these. And the majority, I would say, of people, of generations that go to this are probably between the ages of 18 all the way up to like 30, maybe mid-30s or so. Definitely like in the 20s, like early 20s to late 20s is huge. That might be the biggest portion. Like you also got your 18 and your 19-year-olds in there too. I would say that's a big majority of generations that go. Now, don't get me wrong, I know that there could be people past the generations that I've mentioned that go and attend these, but I just want to give you like a general idea of like the main population that is attending these events. Music is also seen as a form of therapy as well. When, I didn't know this before, music was actually made and created to worship God. And so that's why you also got music and you got songs being made in churches. You know, you got your hymns. I mean, nowadays worship music is definitely evolved. It's a little bit different, not just your normal hymns, but that can be a subject for another video. Music can be very spiritual. Music connects people. You know, you might have heard this before where people, like if you look at somebody's playlist, you'll basically know what kind of person they are or the things that they've been through in life. You know, you have so many kinds of beats, you got your lyrics. Also, this is a little bonus, this is a side note that I wasn't planning on even talking about, but I've realized too, after Christ, right, when you receive the Holy Spirit, you begin to notice, or at least for me, in my perspective and in my experiences, that I can listen to a song and it might not even have lyrics. Okay, some lyrics are very explicit, some lyrics are they talk about very specific things. You already know what the song is about. But let's take out the lyrics. Just using the song, just using the soundtrack, in my heart, I feel like in my spirit and my soul, I know that this music is demonic. I know that it is something like, you know, you have your brain waves, you have beta waves, theta waves. You can really look into this stuff, and it gets very detailed about how sound waves work and how they affect you, how they affect your brain. And I can tell when some kind of song, even without the lyrics, hey, you know what? This song, this soundtrack is making me feel depressed. It's making me feel sad. It's making you feel a certain type of way. And also vice versa too. You got ones that make you feel very happy, you got the whole spectrum of how music makes you feel. That's why music can really connect people. Like I can have just barely met somebody at this rave or concert, and I'm already connecting with them because we already like the same artist. We came here for the same reason. We both obviously like the music, we like the artist, we like everything about it, and so that's already connecting you with somebody else. Along with raves is that the beats can be very hypnotic. This is besides like people doing drugs at these events, and I'm not saying either that everybody that goes to these events is doing drugs. I'm sure there's some people there that aren't on anything. Some people could very well likely be completely sober. You know what I'm saying? But there is definitely hypnotic beats for sure. And also too, another thing that happens at these raves is that people do like little light shows. You know, I mean, there's already kind of a light show with the DJ or the artist who's playing in the moment. You got your lights flashing everywhere. You got certain beams of light moving. It's a whole scenario. It's a whole environment created for this one thing. You know, everything is meant to go along with this song, with this soundtrack, the lights and everything. You know, you got your multitudes of people in here doing this, doing that. And you got people that will also do like their own personal little light shows. They'll have like little lights. Maybe they'll have it's like in some type of glove or something. And they got lights and they'll be moving it around, almost just like that. Just how I just move my hands right now. And they'll basically do it right in front of a person's face. Like just how close I am to you right now, this is how close they'll do it. And then you're just mesmerized by it. You're meant to just get into it. You know, the music is playing in the background. You might be on some drugs, and it's very hypnotic. It's very, I don't know what the end goal is really, but, on a very spiritual level, it can be hypnotic. And hypnotism, by the way, this could be a video in the future, potentially, but hypnotism is demonic. It is not from God. We're not here meant to be hypnotized, okay? You can call it a satanic practice to be hypnotized. And there are also legitimate therapists that will use this form to help somebody for a therapy session too. Like, I get it might help, but how much is it really helping them? But that's a whole nother section. With raves, another portion that I wanted to speak about is its potential to lead people into bad habits. You can have overindulgence, addictions for just about anything really. And with raving, because raving starts, usually as far as my experience has been, is that it would usually start around 7 p.m. in the evening, And these raves though, they don't last for like 1 hour, 2 hours like your typical concert. Like these big rave events will go all the way up till about 2 in the morning. Maybe more, honestly. I'm not sure. But at least the ones that I've been to go up until like 2 a.m. Or maybe it was 1 a.m., but it might have been 2. It's super late. And so, I mean, you might already have a habit of staying up late, but especially like, or if you're on drugs or something, typically people at raves, they're not eating. You're usually just either on drugs, or maybe you're sober, maybe you're drinking alcohol, what have you, but typically people are not here to eat food. They're here to party. There is drugs involved, and like I said, I know not everyone does drugs, but I'm pretty sure the majority of people are on something, even if they're not just smoking weed or something. So attending a lot of these raves, I remember that we went to an event that lasted more than 1 day. It was like a 2-day or a 3-day event, and I think we did like 2 days. The first day, yes, there were drugs involved. I think alcohol too, even though you can't, I feel like when you're on drugs, you can't really feel alcohol that much, or it has almost no effect because you're just counteracting the drug, whatever it is that you're on. Going to these rave events, I remember that the second time, after it was like a 2-day event or 3 days, and we went 2 days in a row at least, or maybe it was just a 2-day event. And the second day, I was very tired. Like the first day, I already had drugs involved, maybe alcohol too. The second day, there was alcohol involved, but I feel like I was just so tired, especially by the end of the event. I was so tired because I had already exhausted and used up the majority of my physical energy and all my types of energy, I'm sure spiritual too, into this first day of the event. These events, especially like if you're into the rave culture, it's very physically tiring. It can be mentally tiring as well, especially after the first day if you're going more than once. And you can say it does connect people. The drugs that are involved with the rave culture are things that, you got things like ecstasy, MDMA, you got ketamine, you got all this kinds of stuff, man. I'm sure acid's in there too, LSD, right? And these drugs, even without going to a rave, these drugs are meant to cause euphoria, and they're meant to enhance your conscious level and your conscious state. You're meant to, you're basically going from one level of consciousness to another, and this is also true for the spiritual realm as well. After getting closer to God and receiving and being filled with the Holy Spirit, it's way different being filled with the Holy Spirit than being filled with drugs, being filled with whether it be weed or any other drug you can think of. And I haven't done every single drug that exists. I did end up doing cocaine as well too. I don't think at the raves, but I have done that, and I never thought I was going to. And it does change your perception of things too. It can make you desire things. It can make you just want things that you shouldn't want. It can make you very lustful as well. Lust is already a thing just naturally, just being sober. Now imagine being on drugs. It's even everything that you feel on the sober level is intensified way more when you're on drugs. Drugs nowadays in this modern era that we're in this culture, it's not hard to find. It's so easy to find people that have drugs. And also, one thing too is that a lot of people say, I remember hearing this way back, that weed is not a gateway drug. This is totally false. Weed is totally a gateway drug, and I stand by that opinion of mine. I stand by it. I do believe it's a gateway drug, and I tell you this because when I was introduced to weed the very first time, and then just smoking with friend groups, right, that would smoke, there was always access to something else. There was always access to acid or shrooms, psychedelics, or whatever it was. Weed was always the door opener, because weed is just very, like, a lot more people smoke weed than probably a lot of other drugs too. This is not including caffeine or coffee or whatnot, but weed is definitely a gateway drug. And if you ever hear anybody say that it's not, please don't believe them. It is totally and completely a gateway drug. Because once you find weed, you can find other things as well too. At these raves and these events, you can, apart from friends and people bringing their own drugs or their own substances into these events, you might also run into people that are trying to sell you something too, and that want you to try something. Or you know what? Maybe they won't even sell it to you, they'll just give it to you for free. You might get some type of drug, maybe you don't even know what it is, or you're told it's something, but you don't actually know. It's just kind of like how if you're gonna have a drink, which I don't recommend drinking just from my personal opinion and my personal experiences and testimony from alcohol. But I always remember that I was told for myself to pour my own drink or not to receive a drink from somebody else, because you have no idea what somebody put in there. This is very well known. I know there's been news outlets too. There's a lot of things where people will put things or substances or drugs into somebody's drink, into their food, and they don't even know. And that's also why ecstasy is known as like date rape drug, basically, because you have no idea. Yes, and people will be getting, you don't know what's going to happen to you, and it's very unfortunate, it's very sad that, and yes, we do make our own choices and we put ourselves in these situations, and sometimes you think that you're going to go to something for a reason, but then when you get there and then throughout the time that you're there, things happen that you didn't expect were going to happen. Or you're introduced to things that you didn't know that you were going to come to know about. Or you're going to try something that you weren't even intentionally trying to do or get yourself into. And also peer pressure is another big thing too. Please, if you're listening to this and watching this video, don't let yourself get peer pressured. And I know that it's very easy to say that. And believe me, I feel like I was peer pressured too. But in the end, it is your choice. But from me to you, don't let somebody else, no matter how much you call them a friend, and if they really are your friend, they won't peer pressure you. But it's very easy for someone to say, oh yeah, just try it. Just try it, or just this one time. Oh, we're only going to do this one time. We're never going to do this ever again. Things like that. Don't let that be the reason that you try a drug or that you try a substance, or you do something that you're going to end up regretting later on. Finishing off this video, raves can be a form of expression for sure, because you can go to these events dressed up almost however you want, okay? And I'm not endorsing that. I'm just wanting to say that people who do go to raves, and within this rave culture that is very popular and has become very popular over the recent years, people feel like they can just express themselves more. They can connect with more people. I'm not saying that expressing yourself is bad. It's amazing, at least here in the United States, to be able to have the freedom of expression. You got your freedom of religion, freedom of speech. You can express yourself. We have that freedom. There's a lot of countries and other places in the world that don't allow you to have that freedom. And if you try to do something or say something out loud, or in public, then they're gonna come down on you hard. With this rave experience, I did just want to expose what it is, some of my experiences with it. Do I recommend going to raves? No, I do not. And that is my personal opinion. And especially if you're someone who is a Christ follower, you definitely won't find yourself at a rave. If you're really following Jesus, you won't find yourself at a rave. Because there's drugs involved. Lust is very easy to do at raves, with how people are allowed to dress. And yes, that is like an internal thing. Raves can be very dangerous. I don't recommend doing them. Am I condemning people that are going to raves? No, I'm not. People are allowed to dress how they want. People, you feel like you can express yourself however you want. And it's not bad to be able to express yourself. It's definitely how you're expressing yourself too. Yeah, we can't stop people how they dress, and lustful thoughts are going to be your own personal thing, and it could be a struggle or a battle that you're going through. And drugs as well. You could be addicted to drugs. You can get addicted to drugs. Going to raves is not something I recommend. It's not something I will ever do in my life. And And one experience I did want to share, I almost forgot, is the very first time I went to a rave was also the very first time I tried Molly, or it was a version of Molly or something. Anyways, I tried it, and I remember that there was an artist playing. I don't remember who it was. There was a song that was on, and there were lights flashing. And I think it was just the moment where the drug actually started really taking effect in my body. And yes, in my mind too. It takes an effect on your mind as well. And I remember thinking, this is when I was on drugs, okay, at my first rave. I remember thinking, everybody here around me at this event is on their way to hell. That is what came into my mind. I never expressed that to anybody, and it's not something I felt like I wanted to say out loud, but I was just so into my own thoughts. And this is also something that happens when you're on drugs too, is you can get very into your own thoughts. You could be looking at somebody and be thinking about their whole life or who they are as a person. Or, you could have all kinds of, maybe you start getting desires for this person, that you want to be with them. There's so many things that can come into your mind when you're on drugs. Drugs will definitely be a whole nother separate video. But this video was just meant to expose raving and what happens within this culture, what can happen in this culture, and the dangerous effects that can come out of it, all the different bad habits that you can gain from it. And yeah, with that, you guys take care, stay safe, and God bless.